Jonathan Ross, an immigration and customs enforcement agent, filmed himself shooting and killing 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good on January 7, 2026, capturing the entire encounter on his personal cell phone, including the moment he fired 3 fatal shots. What that 47-second video revealed would spark a national crisis over immigration enforcement and the use of deadly force. The shooting happened around 9:30 that morning on Portland Avenue and East 34th Street in South Minneapolis, just one day after Homeland Security announced the largest immigration enforcement operation ever carried out, with 2,000 federal agents flooding the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. Renee Good, a mother of 3 and longtime Minneapolis resident, had parked her burgundy Honda Pilot sideways across the street, blocking traffic while her wife Becca stood outside the vehicle. Becca Good later explained their presence that morning in a statement. "We stopped to support our neighbors. We had whistles. They had guns." Community members across Minneapolis had built a warning system to protect each other from ICE raids, blowing whistles and honking car horns whenever federal agents appeared in their neighborhoods. Schools asked residents to watch as children got off buses that morning because ICE vehicles had been circling the building since dawn, and the entire city felt like it was holding its breath. When Ross arrived and stepped out of his vehicle, he pulled out his cell phone and started recording as he walked toward Good's SUV. Everything that followed, all 47 seconds of it, was captured from his perspective. The footage shows something unexpected. Ross circles the vehicle calmly, filming as he goes, and you can see Good's black dog sitting in the back seat watching him through the window. Good has her driver's side window down with one hand on the steering wheel and the other resting outside, and as Ross walks past her door, she looks directly at him and says, "That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you." Becca Good was standing outside filming Ross with her own phone, telling him she's a U.S. citizen and a former veteran, before adding, "You wanna come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy." Other officers moved in, and one of them barked at Renee to get out of the fucking car. What happened next took maybe 5 seconds. Good reversed briefly, then accelerated forward while turning her steering wheel to the right, and Ross, who was still holding his cell phone in one hand, yelled, "Whoa," before pulling his gun with his other hand and firing 3 times. The phone camera jerked wildly toward the sky as the shots rang out, and Good's SUV kept rolling down the street until it crashed into a parked car. Someone said "fucking bitch" in the aftermath, though nobody can confirm who. Paramedics arrived at 9:42, less than 5 minutes after the first 911 call, and found Good with gunshot wounds to her chest, left forearm, and possibly her head. Resuscitation efforts continued for an hour before she was pronounced dead at Hennepin County Medical Center around 10:30 that morning. The Trump administration came out swinging immediately. Trump himself claimed Good violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, while Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem labeled it an act of domestic terrorism and accused Good of weaponizing her vehicle. Vice President J.D. Vance shared Ross's video on social media, insisting it proved self-defense, and he went further by calling Good brainwashed and declaring her death a tragedy of her own making. Experts who studied the footage reached completely different conclusions. Jeff Alpert, a criminology professor at the University of South Carolina, zeroed in on a critical detail. Gross, a University of Wisconsin law professor who specializes in cases where officers shoot at moving vehicles, put it even more bluntly. If you are an officer who views this woman as a threat, you don't have one hand on a cell phone. You don't walk around this supposed weapon, casually filming. Charles Ramsey, the former Philadelphia police commissioner who now works as a CNN contributor, noticed something else. The most telling part is when he walks by her and she doesn't look anything like a domestic terrorist. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey watched the same footage the administration was using to justify the shooting and gave his assessment in characteristically direct terms. Having seen the video myself, I want to tell everybody directly that is bullshit. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. The video contradicted the government's narrative in other ways too. Federal officials claimed Good was blocking ICE agents from moving, but multiple cars drove around her SUV before the shooting, including the one Ross himself was driving. Whether her vehicle actually made contact with Ross remains unclear since his phone angle doesn't capture that moment, though bystander footage shows he was standing out of the vehicle's path when he opened fire. Ross's history added another dimension to the story. The 43-year-old Iraq War veteran had spent nearly 2 decades working in Border Patrol and ICE, and just 6 months before killing Good, he'd been dragged roughly 300 feet by a fleeing driver during a different immigration arrest in Bloomington, Minnesota. That incident left him needing 20 stitches in his right arm and another 13 in his left hand, and when he testified at trial in December 2024, he said, "I was fearing for my life." Thousands filled the streets in protest, and the demonstration spread quickly to Chicago, New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Washington, D.C., and Boston. Minneapolis public schools shut down for the rest of the week and extended online learning options through February 12th, while federal agents. Governor Tim Walz put the National Guard on standby and proclaimed January 9th as Renee Good Day. The violence kept coming. ICE agents shot another person in Minneapolis on January 8th, just one day after killing Good, and then shot and killed a third person on January 11th. Good's death was actually the 9th shooting involving ICE agents since September 2025 across 5 states and Washington, D.C. Public opinion shifted measurably. A YouGov poll conducted between January 9th and 12th found that more Americans viewed the shooting as unjustified than justified, with more than half the country having seen the video. For the first time in polling history, slightly more Americans said they favored abolishing ICE than opposed doing so. Donna Ganger, Good's mother, described her daughter this way: "One of the kindest people I've ever known. She was extremely compassionate. She's taken care of people all her life. She was loving, forgiving, and affectionate. She was an amazing human being." Becca Good's statement captured who her wife was at her core. Renee lived by an overarching belief: there is kindness in the world, and we need to do everything we can to find it where it resides and nurture it where it needs to grow. The investigation became its own controversy when the FBI announced it would handle everything alone without involving Minnesota state authorities, a departure from standard practice that legal experts called highly unusual. By January 23rd, both a Minnesota fraud prosecutor and the FBI agent who initiated Ross's 47-second video was supposed to settle the question of whether he acted appropriately. The Trump administration distributed it widely, convinced it would prove self-defense beyond any doubt. What it actually showed was an officer filming casually with one hand while walking around a vehicle, exchanging relatively calm words with a woman who explicitly said she wasn't angry at him, before firing 3 shots that ended her life in a span of seconds. The video created more questions than answers. Was Ross trained to film confrontations while holding his weapon? Why did he position himself so close to the front of the vehicle if he perceived a threat? What made him decide in that instant that deadly force was necessary when moments earlier the interaction seemed almost conversational? Those questions ignited a national conversation about immigration enforcement, use of force policies, and what happens when federal agents operate in communities that have made clear they're not welcome. Renee Good left her house that Wednesday morning with a whistle, intending to support her neighbors and stand up for what she believed was right.